Let's dive right into this, because today we're unraveling one of the most fascinating and frankly frustrating mysteries of modern life. Have you ever noticed something incredibly strange about money? You can have two people making completely different incomes, living in totally different neighborhoods, and yet somehow they both feel equally broke. Well, in today's explainer, we're digging deep into the source material that breaks down exactly why making more money doesn't always solve our financial stress. We're going to look right past the math and uncover the hidden psychological traps that keep so many of us running on a never-ending financial treadmill.
Look at this single staggering number, 60%. Over 60% of Americans are currently living paycheck to paycheck. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. You're thinking this is just a reality for low-income workers, right? But the data actually shows us a completely different story. That 60%, it includes teachers, nurses, engineers, and yes, even people pulling in six-figure salaries.
It's wild to think about. On one side, you have someone earning $40,000 a year who genuinely struggles to pay rent, but then on the other side, you got someone making $120,000 a year who somehow still finds himself totally panicking right before payday. The bank balances are wildly different, absolutely, but the internal experience, it is the exact same stress, the exact same anxiety, and they are both saying the exact same sentence to themselves, man, I just need a little more money. But for millions of people, that little more never actually seems to arrive.
So, what's actually going on here? How can someone make a demonstrably good living and still feel completely trapped on the first of every single month? Well, to understand this, we have to realize that we aren't looking at a math problem. Because if it were just math, a high income would automatically equal low stress. End of story. Instead, this is a behavioral mystery. You see, most people aren't drowning from one giant, catastrophic financial mistake. They're drowning from hundreds of tiny, completely invisible ones that they don't even realize they're making until years later.
Picture this, because we've all been there. It's Friday. The paycheck finally hits. For a few glorious hours, life feels calm. You order some good takeout, maybe buy a little something online to treat yourself. You actually relax. But then comes step two, the bills hit. Rent, the car payment, those 5 different streaming subscriptions, credit cards, insurance, gas, groceries. Suddenly, that paycheck vanishes almost as fast as it hit your account. By step 3, you're right back to carefully checking your banking app before you even dare to buy a coffee. And finally, step 4, you're just waiting for the next payday, month after month, year after year. It is completely exhausting.
Which brings us to our first major clues in this investigation. Section 1. The invisible culprits, psychology and lifestyle inflation.
The crucial piece of the puzzle here is something called hedonic adaptation. Now, I know it sounds super academic, but you have absolutely experienced this. It's basically our psychological tendency to quickly get used to improvements in our lives. So when you get a raise, your lifestyle naturally expands to consume it. That small raise turns into a slightly nicer apartment. The big promotion becomes a more expensive car. At first, you think to yourself, hey, I work hard, I've earned this, and you totally have. But human beings adapt incredibly fast. That exciting new car, give it a few months, and it's just your normal car. The bigger apartment is literally just where you sleep. And here is the real trap. Once a luxury becomes your new normal, losing it feels deeply painful. So you just keep spending simply to maintain that baseline feeling of progress.
Think of it like walking through life carrying a backpack full of bricks. At first, the backpack is pretty light, but every single time your income rises, you toss another brick in. A slightly better lifestyle here, a couple more subscriptions there, higher expectations, bigger monthly payments. Now, individually, picking up one brick is super easy. It feels perfectly manageable. But eventually, that entire backpack becomes utterly exhausting to carry around every day. And the scariest part? You can't stop walking because your bills absolutely depend on you keeping up the pace. Your lifestyle has simply become way too expensive to escape.
All right, let's shift our focus a bit. Section 2, the scene of the crime, modern society. Let's rewind 100 years. Back then, spending money meant using physical cash. You had to literally hand over paper and coins to someone else. You watched the money physically disappear from your hands. There was a built-in psychological pain to parting with it. But today, money is basically invisible. We tap our phones, we swipe a piece of plastic, we double-click buy now with our thumbs without even thinking. The psychological friction of spending has been completely disconnected from reality, making it incredibly easy and, honestly, pretty dangerous to spend money we don't actually have. Because here's a fundamental truth about human nature. Our brains absolutely love today. Future you, the one who actually has to pay the credit card bill in 3 weeks, feels like a totally abstract, completely different person. Present you just wants a hit of dopamine right now. and modern spending delivers that dopamine instantly. Your brain literally rewards your purchases chemically. We get that tiny emotional rush when a package arrives at our door, but the problem is that the feeling fades so fast, while the payment stays. We fundamentally confuse the temporary emotional thrill of a purchase with an actual, lasting improvement to our lives.
And believe me, companies know exactly how our brains work. They've engineered what the sources call the illusion of control. This is exactly why everything is a monthly subscription now instead of a yearly fee. It's why every app memorizes your credit card info. It's why buy now, pay later has practically taken over the internet. They want to change our behavior by making us focus solely on the monthly payment instead of the actual total price. A $2,000 purchase? That triggers massive alarm bells in our rational brain. But only $45 a month? Hey, that feels totally manageable. We slowly normalize this financial pressure by stacking these tiny recurring obligations until our entire income is promised away before we even wake up on payday.
Which leads us to this kind of heartbreaking reality. People living paycheck to paycheck are very often not bad with money at all. They are simply emotionally exhausted. And emotional exhaustion leads directly to expensive decisions. Think about it. After a tremendously stressful day at work, what feels easier? Going to the grocery store, prepping ingredients, and cooking a cheap meal, or just tapping your phone for a $30 delivery? Researching a cheaper car insurance policy, or just letting the expensive one auto-renew? Financial stress heavily drains your mental energy, and when you are exhausted, costly conveniences start winning every single daily decision.
But here comes the twist in our mystery. Section 3, Assets versus Identity.
There is a massive psychological divide in how different groups actually spend their money, driven heavily by social media and the very human desire to protect our identities. Poor and middle-class consumers often buy visible symbols of wealth: nice cars, designer clothes, luxury apartments. But these are liabilities. They're things that actively take money out of your pocket every single month. The truly wealthy, however, often buy invisible assets. They buy cash flow. They buy things that quietly produce money every month rather than drain it. Let's put this into perspective and see how it plays out over time. Imagine two people, and they each get an extra $500 a month. Person A immediately upgrades their lifestyle. Better car, dining out more often, they look richer almost instantly. Person B, on the other hand, slowly invests that $500 into assets, maybe index funds, a side business, or just learning a new high-income skill. Now, initially, Person B looks like they're falling way behind, but years later, Person B has actually bought future freedom. Because true wealth isn't really about your income. It's about ownership. Ownership of assets, ownership of your time, and ownership of your own choices.
So how do we actually get out of this trap? Section 4, Designing Your Escape Plan.
It all starts with replacing one simple question. Financially successful people stop asking, "Can I afford this monthly payment?" And they start asking a much more powerful question. How much freedom is this costing me? That single paradigm shift is a real game changer. It transforms every financial decision from a simple math equation into a true measure of your future flexibility. Every recurring expense you sign up for silently reduces your ability to take risks later, like quitting a toxic job, moving to a new city, or just breathing easy during an emergency. Low financial pressure creates options. High financial pressure, that just creates fear. Now, the goal here isn't extreme deprivation, not at all. Money is absolutely meant to improve your life. The goal is building margin, that vital breathing room gap between what you earn and what you actually need. And you build it through small compounded habits, a small emergency fund, canceling just one unnecessary monthly payment, actively avoiding lifestyle inflation the very next time you get a raise, just pausing for a second to separate emotional spending from intentional spending. Just like compound interest grows your money slowly over time, these tiny behavioral habits compound financially over years to finally break those invisible chains of consumer debt.
Ultimately, real wealth is so much quieter than we're led to believe. It looks like low stress. It looks like having options. It literally looks like the freedom to say no. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If over 60% of us are trapped in this relentless loop, maybe the question isn't, why are people bad with money? Maybe the better question to ask yourself today is, what kind of system trains people to constantly consume while rarely teaching them how to build actual freedom? Think about that for a bit and start building your own stability today. Thanks so much for joining me for this deep dive, and I'll catch you next time.